Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Enough channel. In this video we're looking at the round 26 preview. So our head-to-head grand finals are about to kick off tonight. Very exciting times. But as usual with our previews, we'll look at the popular trade options, captaincy options, and then I guess I'll fill you in with my plans for this weekend. So in terms of the most popular trade outs, Latrell Mitchell, number one most traded out. Um, by this week, suspended for round 27. So his Supercoach season is done. With fullback being such a hot position, I absolutely agree. If you've got Latrell Mitchell, trade him out. Number two, Ruben Garrick. So this is an interesting one. He is named on the extended reserve bench. Um, but you'd imagine with Manly being unable to qualify for the finals, um, and if he has got a fractured back, as was suggested, you couldn't see much point in him playing in the last couple of rounds. So, in saying that, if the injury isn't what they've said it is, and he can play, he's got the Bulldogs this week, which is probably the best matchup for fullbacks and centre wingers. And then West Tigers next week, which probably isn't too far behind the Bulldogs in terms of those matchups. So um, I guess he's one if you can somehow hold him until the last minute, which is I guess what I'm going to try and do. Um, it's not the worst option, but if you can use that 600k to bring in, someone like a Joey Manu will be massive this week. Um, a few others, Brian Toto, for example. Yeah, I could totally see that trade working out. Cody Walker at number three and Alex Johnson at number four. Well, actually, we'll go through. There's a few there. Graham, Murray, Cook, so all the South assets. So obviously, if you need a playing number this week, you get rid of them. And given South's form hasn't been fantastic, I can see why people wouldn't necessarily want them for the game against the Roosters next week. Could be an extra final essentially. Knockout game. So, you know, you could hope that they live for that one and get you some overall points. But obviously, if you can get rid of them and get players that are going to score over the next 2 weeks, then that's the alternative. Sandwiched in the middle of all those Rabbitohs is James Tedesco. So not named this week with a head um, or concussion protocol. Um, what do they call it? Mandatory resting period, something. Uh, he's not playing this week. Um, Again, because he's a fullback, can totally understand you looking to bring someone in. But I think if you can afford to, I'd try and hold Tedesco. I think again if it is going to be an extra knockout final against South next week, I think I really want to have Tedesco in my team. So again, I can understand trading out because fullback is a hot position. But if you can find a way around it, maybe he's worth a hold. Gutherson, I think he is a trade out. So even though he is playing this week, it is against Penrith. He has a bye next week. So, you can move him to a Reece Walsh. That's great. Um, After that, I guess if you haven't got Ponga, find a way to get him in. And Josh Schuster at number 10, so not named this week. You wouldn't imagine he'll be back next week. So, I'm not sure what you're doing with 448 grand. Maybe, if you nuff him out, that gives you a couple hundred grand to upgrade elsewhere. Um, so, yeah, if that's the case, fair enough. If not, you just hold and make sure you are getting the best 17 on the field this week. So in terms of the trade-ins, so DWZ, yeah, I agree. I think he's the best centre wing option. If you've got a Garrick and those sort of guys, well, actually second best. I just saw the best option lower down the list. Reece Walsh, yep, I've already brought him in for Latrell. I think he's definitely the number one target in the fullback position. The draw's not the best. Raiders in Canberra, followed by the Storm. but I think, he's capable of scoring big against anyone. Joey Manu, so this guy is the best centre wing option this week. Playing fullback, averages 91 in that position. Um, in the stock market video yesterday, I even suggested you could trade him into your 5/8 slot. That's how good he is going to go this week. And I'm still tossing up whether he's going to be in my captaincy plans this week or not. It's just how gutsy am I with that decision. Scott Drinkwater. So, I think this week he is a nice option if you can afford him. He does have Penrith at Penrith next week. So, if you are playing for overall, obviously Reece Walsh is your first priority. Um, and if you're playing overall and you got trades, that's great. If you don't, like I said, you got Teddy, you hold. You got Ponga, that's fine. Um, yeah, not a bad trade, but definitely below Reece Walsh. CNK, solid pick. New Zealand Warriors have a nice run the next last two games. So, same as DWZ, great option to bring in if you don't already have him. He is more popular than DWZ, so that probably reflects the numbers. Greg Marzu, so I did put him as an avoid on the stock market video. It's purely because I couldn't decide, any decent picks to put in there. Um, the Sharks do defend well against centre wings for SuperCoach purposes, but the Knights are killing it. Kalen Ponga's killing it. He sits outside him. The Sharks aren't going to let Newcastle through the front door like the Dogs a couple of weeks ago. So they're going to have to go around, and Greg Marzi could be the beneficiary of that. Cam Munster, so against the Titans this week, absolutely, I think is a trade in. Um, he is the player that I'm most scared of not having at the moment. So I might have just spoiled the back half of this video. But yeah, the Titans, they are a good side, but they're not the strongest defensively. They'll tend to outscore oppositions more so than keeping it tight. So Munster is definitely one that I'm leaning towards for this weekend. Swally, so he was almost the avoid, but honestly, he's in good form at the moment. Um, the Roosters are in good form. You know, with Sam Walker coming back this week, you'd imagine there'd be a bit of attack going down the right side, although the report is he's going to be playing both sides of the ruck. So it could be pretty exciting. So, yeah, if you want to take him as a point of difference option, it's not the worst, but um, yeah, I just feel like, Manu is the best centre wing option at the Roosters. Eli Katoa, so, a nice attacking center, second row option. He's always been that sort of guy, nice high upside. He's just been unlucky with injuries and the like this season. So, yeah, don't mind that trade. And Nick Meaney, so interestingly, with Ryan Pappenhausen floating around, people still backing him in. I think it would be off the strength of the matchup this week against the Gold Coast. They do play Brisbane next week, so not the easiest game. And also, if Pappenhausen does come into the squad, you'll imagine at some stage that he'll slot in at fullback, and Meaney will play it as a centre or a winger, that sort of thing. So that will obviously limit his upside potentially. So they're the trade options. In terms of the captaincy options, and we'll look at the top 1%, see what the smart money is doing. And so it looks like a lot of people backing Kalen Ponga in the last game. So interestingly, 22.5% backing Joey Manu against the Tigers. This fills me with confidence that I can put the C on him this week. Nathan Cleary, 12.5%. So I guess, people locking in the captaincy on a Thursday night, not the worst strategy going around. Particularly if he does pop off, then you put a lot of pressure on your head-to-head opponent. Scotty Drinkwater, I suppose, if you've got a fullback that's 875k against the Dolphins, North Queensland season's on the line. He could definitely do a bit. Sean Johnson, yep, nice matchup against the Dragons. Part of the reason why we've brought him in for the back end of the season. Cam Munster I've talked about already. Nicho Hynes, he's back in form with Braden Trindle in the six. Um, they're sort of playing the opposite kind of roles to their numbers, but it just means for Nicho that he's back running and making things happen. Harry Grant, again, against the Gold Coast, he's always a chance of scoring big. Don't hate that. Reece Walsh, gun fullback, could be a good captaincy call. The trail suspended, obviously, people holding out from last week still. And then the two Warriors guys, Ruben Garrick, yep, so getting into, I guess, the trades where people haven't quite finished off yet. VC, so Nathan Cleary, obviously, in the first game was quite high. SJ. So obviously, if you've got your halfback as a VC, you're probably looking at Ponga or Manu as your captaincy option. Maybe DWZ or Drinkwater, CNK. So the Warriors guys very popular in that second game of the round. Harry Grant, Cam Munster, Nicho Hynes, Brian Toto getting some love there, 1%. Very nice. Cool. So in terms of my trades for this week, I've already used one with Reece Walsh. Um, and as I said, like looking at my head-to-head matchups this week, and we'll give these guys a shout out. Not that they watch the channel in particular, but we've got the Capalaba Cup and the Robert Brody Cup on the line this week. And when I look at both of their teams and the players I don't have, uh, Munster stands out. So with this one, the Gillies Gorillas, the likes of Olaquatu, who actually scares me quite a lot as well. Obviously, I do have Ponga as my captain at the moment. Um, yeah, Nicho Hynes, I've obviously got SJ, so I've already made that bet. I've got Big Tina instead of Fanua Blake, so that's been a wash recently. Um, Corey Horsburgh there, like I'd back Payne Haas or Tohu to outscore him. So it's sort of these two guys that I want to try to cover potentially. And then when I look at the other one, back to my matchups, so the Capalaba Cup, again, that's the name that jumps out, Cam Munster. I don't have DWZ, but I'm going to back in the guys that I've got, just because I haven't traded them in yet. um, Actually, that probably so. Cody Walker's missing, so you'd imagine Reece Walsh will come in and paint Haas for this team. So probably won't have Bateman. Fanua Blake and Tino match up well. It'll probably be something like DWZ versus Hopgood, which is a bit scary. Um, but I think that it'll be okay. It's going to have to be. So I guess the trade-in option is Munster, and so then the decision was, well, do I trade out Garrick? Well, if I trade out Garrick, I can't actually make that move. So trade out Tedesco, Ponga would have to slide back to bring Munster in. But then when I thought about it, and I said I really want to play Tedesco next week, got my man Matt Burton here. As much as I love him, the fact that the Dogs are sort of just running out of juice, nothing really to play for. Am I going to play him in the next 2 weeks? And when I thought about it, it's probably not the case. And when I looked at it, I can actually trade him for Munster, and I don't have a lot of cash in the bank too, so that makes me feel a lot better about it. So if I complete that trade, which will be my last trade for the year, we can now swap Tedesco with Walsh. So essentially, I guess I am still playing two fullbacks. It's just that Ponga is sitting in my 5'8" slot. And we bring Munster in. So swap Ruben Garrick with Marzu. And so then, I can put the reserve on Kiraz. And then obviously if Garrick does get up, I can wait as long as possible for team lists. If I need to, I can swing him back in. Um, if not, I do also have the option of playing Nikora if I feel like, that Kiraz isn't the right player. But I can wait until about 1 p.m. on Sunday to make that final move with the current setup. So, um, yeah, the last question is around VC and C. So, you know, I guess Cleary and Ponga isn't the worst shout. Cleary playing first at home against Parramatta, who looked pretty busted. Um, so then it's just whether, I just back Ponga. But I think I'm really sort of looking to risk it for the biscuit here. Joey Mane. It just looks like the matchup against the Tigers. Roosters need to win. He's playing fullback. I think this could be the move that makes or breaks it for me. But I'm happy to live and die by this decision. So, gonna lock it in. Obviously, if Cleary pops off, he won't be captain anyway. I've got my man Miles Martin here on standby. So, obviously, I think Tarpany will be the one that has to go um, in that case, although I could swap him and Tohu. I've got to decide who I think is going to score more this week. They're both in good form. The Warriors do have that nicer matchup, so probably leaning towards Tohu. So, I've got my loophole option there ready to go. Yeah, so I think this is how we're going to line up for the grand final, and we'll see how we go. So, as always, if you've got any comments or thoughts, any other left field options that I haven't considered, please feel free to get them down in the comments section below. Um, if you are enjoying the NRL SuperCoach content, there is still a bit more to come. So please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel for this, as well as Fantasy Premier League, NFL Fantasy. That's going to be coming over the summer months. But other than that, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.